I was 6 years old when my sisters and I went to visit our mom at the mental hospital for the first time. We only went back one other time, and then we all knew we weren't ever going back there to see that again. Not only was the woman who we went to meet not the same woman that we knew from home and that my dad married, but the other people running around the halls and around the building, it wasn't a pleasant experience. It was actually the scariest experience I had had till I was in my 40s. And we left her there because there was no choice. And we just went on living. And it was years later when she would get out. We were much older. And I would be riding my bike downtown Baltimore, and I'd see her. This disheveled, dirty, hunched over bag lady, pushing around her little wire basket with her whole life inside. But I didn't even need to see her face. I noticed her shape. I knew her shape. And I could recognize her blocks away. And almost every time I went downtown, I saw her. And on some level, I wanted to avoid her. And sometimes I did. But otherwise, I talked to her. And we interacted with each other. But there was nothing I could ever do to help my mom. She was mentally ill. She was homeless, alone, broke. It was not fun. But we dealt with it. And we just rolled with it. But the thing that struck me was when I was downtown and I'd see her, whether we interacted with each other or not, the world just kept going around her. And nobody paid any notice to her. Nobody seemed to care. Nobody seemed to get in her way, so that was good. But it was hard to watch. And I decided that this wasn't something that any kid should see. And if there was anything I could do to keep that from happening to somebody else, I was going to try to do it. And I was in my teens and I was already a drug addict. I was a drug addict for 13 years, barely survived that one. And, maybe on some level, the drug addiction was a way to make up for some void in my life from my mom being gone and my dad kind of working too hard trying to get a good enough education, his second master's degree, which he got, so he could make enough money to support us. Not long after my mom was locked up and never came back, social services came to our house. 3 people, 3 cars. There were 4 kids. My dad had no heads up. He had no idea what was going on. They went on to explain to him that, of course, they were here to pick up the children. He's like, what are you talking about? And they went on to explain, in 1969 and 1970, there's no way in the world that a man could take care of 4 small children by himself. That's just not done. Well, my dad, who was a minister and biggest heart of gold you've ever met, He said he kicked him the fuck out of the house. And he said the mistake they made is they didn't bring the SWAT team with them, because that was the only way that they were getting his kids. They had 3 different cars because they had already found foster homes for us. And we were going to separate houses. And there was no plan for us to come back. My dad, after he kicked him out of the house, he had to mount a national PR campaign. And we were on the covers of magazines and the front page of the Baltimore Sun newspaper social section, telling our story so that he could fight off social services. So again, we just roll with it, you know. I dropped out of high school because the drugs had just consumed me. And I did not have control of my own life. And finally, I had a nightmare. I only had 2 different nightmares my whole life that were sustained. This was the second one. And I saw myself as a junkie, which I was at the time. So an intravenous drug user. I was a junkie balled up in the corner of an abandoned house in Baltimore City with a needle hanging out of my arm. And I couldn't tell if I was dead or alive. But I had that same nightmare for at least 6 months, probably a year. And it was, to me, it was a sign that this was what my future was going to be. That at 50-something years old, which is what I imagined myself to be in the nightmare, that I was going to die a drug addict. And I didn't care about myself, but I cared about all the people I would hurt. So I got my shit together. And it took 5 years, but I quit drugs. And I became a professional athlete. I raced mountain bikes. Did that for 17 years. And then I graduated to a big corporate job, corporate executive business job, traveling the world, making a lot more money than I needed to make. Had a couple kids, married and divorced twice. When I was at my big boy job, I was given an opportunity to do some kind of project for kids. My big master plan was open a homeless shelter so I could help people like my mother was not have that kind of life. I didn't do that, but I opened a nonprofit used bike shop for the benefit of the kids in the neighborhood, that they could break their horrible cyclical existence that they were stuck in. Most of these kids, they would have never even gotten a job at McDonald's. Not that that's a bad job when you're a kid. But we gave them a job there and we taught them a lot of skills. And we made a difference. And then I went on to open another nonprofit, which was closer, helping kids that are experiencing homelessness, closer to what I was trying to do to help people. My dad, who had the biggest heart of anybody I'd ever met, just gave himself to everyone else. I guess that's where I get it. And that's probably where you, Travis, my son, that's where you're going to get it. You're going to get it from me, and I got it from him. The big heart. So now I'm at a point where my son's in college, my daughter's living with her mom full time. I'm divorced for the second time, dog's gone, stepdaughter's gone, and I want to help people. And now I have the time. And that's why I'm here, to help. And I learned a lot of things along the way, and I developed a lot of tools. And I just wanted to explain my why of what I'm doing. It's because I don't want to see people suffer that don't need to suffer. And sometimes we are our own worst enemy. I did that for a long time, on and off. Nobody needs to live like that. So that's what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to keep pushing. Follow my shit. Check me out. Share it. Especially with somebody who needs it. I'm helping a bunch of people with drug addiction problems and more. So I want to try to help. That's why I'm here. So thanks for listening. Go do good shit today.